I'd like to call the Village of Weston Planning Commission meeting to order for Monday, April 8th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Roll call by not Secretary Parker.
Oh, shoot.
She's not here.
Cronin,
Here.
Hinsdale,
Present.
Deason,
Yes.
Gert, Hoffman, Jordan,
Here.
Bumper.
Here.
All right, public comment. Is there anybody online or in the audience that wishes to make a comment? Do you have one?
Certain project that you're asking.
Which project is your comment in regards to?
Concord Avenue conditional use.
We can, there's an opportunity for you to do public comments at that time. Do you want to do it then? Okay. Anybody else? Second time online or in the audience? Any comments? Third time. Anybody online or in the audience that wishes to make a comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to minutes from previous meetings, minutes from February 12th, 2024 PC meeting.
To approve the minutes as presented.
Second. Motion by Pincinot, second by Jordan on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Communications, disclosures, and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals during this time. Do we have any? No? Okay. Written communications received. I have one, but I'm gonna wait until item number 5, until the public comment period. I'll read them then. Public hearings. What was that?
I'm not sure. Gary did just log in on Zoom too.
Okay. Gary, are you there? No?
Well, he's muted now.
Gary, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
There you are. We just let the record show that Gary, you're enjoying the books too. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry guys. I thought I'd make it there, but I had a rough day up here, so I'm just joining in virtually.
Thank you. Zoning map and text amendments, conditional uses and related requests. Project number 2024-0072, USAM LLC, 3107 Concord Avenue, requesting a conditional use permit to expand a personal storage facility within the LI Limited Industrial Zoning District at 3107 Concord Avenue. I'll open the public hearing and presentation by applicant and or staff.
So basically, you kind of have the history of this. Back in 2015, when we adopted the new zoning code, a number of sites became basically non-conforming uses due to things like setbacks or the fact that their uses now required a conditional use. So there was a blanket variance that was given, basically stating, okay, everyone, you're okay right now in 2015, if you do any expansion of the use, then you would need to follow the new regulations. Well, there's a lot of history in here. Previous Administrator Donner did put together some information that I put in there. We've kind of been dealing with this property for a number of years. There was an expansion of the use that we found out about due to some water runoff. And then that was coming from the site when they did do some additions. I did put in the packet kind of where we're kind of thinking when this happened, when they added a couple of buildings. So I don't know if Michael gonna go to that, but basically this is similar to what happened over at the U-Haul site. So it's basically they're not expanding the use. We're now trying to get it basically in a state of being conforming now because it never got that conditional use from you before it expanded. So at the last, we've been kind of going back and forth for a number of years. At the last board meeting, the board actually agreed to send this to legal counsel to begin enforcement on it. At that point, the owner contacted me, we met, we talked more about this. And he did apply for the conditional use. Last summer, we met with him and basically told him that we would go through this process with the plan commission if he would apply for it. And then we just kind of lost communication over, he supplied the site plan, but did not actually apply for the conditional use permit, and I could not apply for it for him. So that's kind of where we're at. He did now apply for it. So that is what you're seeing here.
But he's not requesting to do anything
He's
different
not
than what he's
doing
been doing
anything.
for.
So basically he expanded the use on the property by adding extra buildings. So that's what happened. So there's the two areas that I circled. So they've been using this as this site since for the last, I think he said 29 years or something like that. But the way the conditional uses work is that at the time you're going through and adding another building, something like that, you're expanding that use. So he would have been required at that time to come through and get a conditional use from the plan commission and get his site plans approved. That did not happen. So we're coming back as a kind of an after the fact to get to a point where we're at with what he is existing now. And he knows that if he does do anything additional, he has to come through as a conditional use permit again.
Okay,
Because the site does not have one, because previously it wasn't required to have a conditional use. But when that code went into effect in 2015, it was required to. So basically all of these personal storage facilities, no matter what district they're in, have to have a conditional use now.
okay. Great, thank you, Jen. Before we get into discussion, I'm gonna get the public comments out of the way. if It's okay with you guys, so.
And there was one in there behind that came from Steve.
Do you want
That we
that
said- I think we did that one. Did I get that one? Or did that come on Friday? I think that came Friday. So you did not get. He didn't agree with the back history that was provided. We've had kind of a difference of opinion on what was grandfathered and what wasn't. Just on kind of how a conditional use works. He now understands that he has to, if he expands it in the future, he has to go through that process and do a conditional use
Okay,
amendment.
all
I
right.
gave you all that information just for historical purposes since we had it and it was given to the board at the last meeting.
Moving on to public comments then. Ma'am, did you wanna step up, state your name and address and make a comment? Okay,
I think he's got one.
I don't know if you guys got a copy of an email.
Is that from Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
that's what he was gonna read.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm his, Mike's wife, Lauren, so I'm part owner, and this is our son who's also part owner of those units.
and what is your address?
8603 Ryan Street.
Okay,
The unit address is 3014 Onset.
okay, thank you. Go ahead, go ahead. Do you have anything you wanna add, or do you want me just to read?
One thing that I guess, we looked at the documents that were there, which is, I guess correct as what you're seeing. My husband talked to, I don't know the name, Ingram. Okay. This morning, and they looked at I think you brought up a previous it's kind of a layout of the lot prior to 2000.
Yeah,
This happened, started in 2018, because my husband saw something going on and a lot of this dirt was washing down. And then I think he talked to Michael, and Michael talked to somebody, and then they put up a erosion control, which worked for a while until it fell down and then it just laid there. But once now, because we were wondering what was going on, so we found out at that time that there was no permitting done, and that's why they contacted the person about the permit. And we never heard back, but I think Mike might have talked to Michael or Valerie or Jennifer a couple times, some issues that were arising. One thing was, the building, as you see in the thing, was, it's a crystal finishing, also had done a non-permitting addition, which was next door, which is kind of behind the other one. But they put in a retention pond to kind of mitigate the water because it flooded a different apartment building next door. But all that kind of comes to the side of our 3014 apartment building. So we've got this lot coming down, especially the way he changed the elevations. And the runoff kind of from, if it overflows the retention pond now would also come. So sometimes some of the previous elevations that we had done originally when we built is washing down into Ross Avenue. So that's kind of why we're looking at, if we're gonna have this kind of runoff, it kind of needs to be handled because it's washing a lot of stuff down.
We have some like rocks there now just to try to slow that runoff.
And that was put in when we built in 2005. So that was there in 2005. That's why we kind of noticed it in 2018, 19, where it was starting to cause more issues. And of course, now it's changed again. As the buildings have gotten put up and the elevations have changed since.
Which I think you had looked at like a different aerial photo from like 2018.
Because that wasn't in the packet.
Yeah, they didn't. I looked at a 2015, I have it up right now, at the south portion of the property and the western part of the property, south of the access was more, it was just grass at that point, so. That was the majority of the work there,
And they
wasn't it?
moved a lot of it, I think, north, a lot of the digging that they did, I think it went to the north side. So again, being that higher, now is even higher than it was,
Gotcha.
comes down towards Ross.
I just assumed that there'd be some sort of like retention pond that would be required for something.
Yeah.
like that.
But being able to bring.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have something else? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I just wanted,
Okay.
no, I just wanted to make how we're looking. Guys, I know the documentation is all there, it's just that the one thing we were saying was lacking was the elevation type stuff.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Just want me to read this in.
Sure, the commissioner.
Okay, I will.
President. Chair. You're a chance.
So I have another email here that came, I'm gonna go ahead and just read this in real quick, came from Mike Wildeck to Valerie this morning. It says, hi Valerie, unfortunately, I'm not able to attend the Plan Commission public hearing in person. However, I appreciate being able to provide comments in writing on project number 2024-0072, requesting a conditional use permit to expand a personal storage facility at 3107 Concord Avenue. I'm co-owner of the multi-unit apartments at 3014, 3016, and 3018 Ross Avenue directly to the south of the proposed expansion. And we deal with significant runoff water discharge from the 3107 Concord property. I built our apartment building in 2004, 2005, and incorporated landscaping berms and ditching to adequately divert runoff from the 3107 Concord property to Ross Avenue during periods of heavy rain and seasonal snow melt. The expansion at 3017 Concord in 2018 and 2019 appeared to remove significant grass area, increase roof parking, increase the impermeable parking area, and alter the high point of the parking area such that more water runoff went to the south towards Ross Ave as opposed to the north towards Concord Ave. As a result, we have experienced significantly more runoff volume and velocity. We now have landscape cobblestones up to 5 inches in diameter washed into Ross Avenue after heavy rain events and have never experienced anything like that prior to the expansion work done in 2018 and 2019. An even greater concern is the threat of building damage when the berms and ditching can't handle the increased runoff from very heavy rain events. I experienced a similar situation when Crystal Finishing did a building expansion directly behind our neighbor at 3010 Ross Avenue. The increased roof area resulted in such a flooding of the backyard that water came over the building foundation, the box sill, and under the back patio doors, flooding the main floors. The main outlet for all that water is the property line between 3010 and 3014 Ross Avenue, which couldn't discharge the runoff quickly enough. I just happened to be watching from my apartment building at the time. After that event, I met with Tim Vigera at Village of Weston and Mark Matthew Crystal Finishing to assess the situation. There was no permitting for site plan submitted for the building expansion, yet Mr. Matthew authorized the addition of a retention pond to mitigate future runoff problems. It seems to have made a big difference, and I thought that was a reasonable solution to a bad situation. I appreciated his willingness to do the right thing. The materials submitted to the village for consideration of this proposal include a map of 3107 Concord and neighboring properties, but the map shows the property after the proposed expansion was completed. Shouldn't we be looking at the property before the expansion started, perhaps 2015? Personally, I think the addition of a retention pond to the proposed expansion plan is essential and quite reasonable given the increased adverse impacts to adjoining properties. The changes made in 2018, 2019 were substantial and increased stormwater costs to neighboring property owners and the village. I respectfully ask the Plan Commission to deny project number 2024-0072 as proposed and direct staff to work with the property owner to resubmit with the retention pond. Mike Wildeck, Wildeck Development LLC. Any other comments on project 2024-0072?
Would you like comments from me?
Who's on? Is that Steve?
Yeah, it's me. Yes.
Hey, Steve. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
want to make a comment, go for it. Just state your name and address for
Well,
the record, please.
Yeah, this is Steve Minell. Address is 8303 Alderson Street, Weston, Wisconsin. My wife and I are the owners of the property. Some of the information is not complete. I guess when we operate the facility, I guess it's a number of storage containers, not buildings per se. And we did install some along the westerly side there, but there was no change in elevations. All we did was clean up some of the trash in the different piles. They had different sand piles, they had stone piles, they had a whole bunch of tall weeds. And basically what we ended up doing was changing it from a east and west parking to a north and south parking on that site. The backside of the lot, it's a hill basically, and it runs directly towards Concord, except the back 40 or so feet, 50 feet or whatever it is, that's all grass, and it will always continue to be grass. Historically, for ever since it was built 29 years ago, that's where the snow would be stored in that corner, all the way about midway to the center of that back lot. The property owners to the south of us, there is that berm that runs there, but there's also an 8-unit that has storage facility, or has the garages there to the south side of our lot. Then there's another duplex, and then there's the one that the folks are talking about right now. All of that was done, after the storage facility was put in there. We did not change any. That's not what we did, to change any of the elevations at all, because it was supposed to continue to slope towards Concord Avenue, and that's where it did. I did send some pictures, and I don't know if they arrived or not, if anybody got them. We did have a very weird or substantial rainfall in 2021. I believe it was August 11th, and even the stormwater sewers in the front of Concord were overwhelmed by it. There was like 4.3 inches of rain that came, so it was, was a 100-year flood or whatever they call that, I guess, when we got 4.3 inches in about an hour, and it just inundated everything. The water was actually flowing into those drain pipes, but the drain pipes weren't able to take it away fast enough. That has nothing to do with whether there was a change in the parking arrangements with the campers and stuff. That's what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say here is it was a very isolated incident. As far as putting it in a pond, I can't see that that's going to have any effect because it's not going to change. There isn't any space back there to put a significant water holding capability. It's just the end of the lot, and it generally slopes right there at the end of the building. If you look way to on the picture that's was sent that I had highlighted, where that at the end of the building is, you go a little bit farther, and that's the top of the hill where it divides what goes to the north and what goes to the south. The vast majority of it does slope to the north. I don't know if I put that in a map or not, but that's how it looks. So as far as saying that the changing of the parking or the change of these containers added to the water, I don't see that. I still don't see that. So I don't know if there's any questions, if there's any other questions that you might have.
Roy's got one.
Yeah, I have a question for staff, and that is can you, two-part question, can you confirm there is no retention pond in this as it's currently written?
There is no.
Okay, second question. If Mr. Minell had come to you prior to the expansion that was done and asked for a conditional use permit at that time, would you have required a retention pond?
It's a Michael question.
Yeah, I guess generally our stormwater ordinance would require somebody to make it so their lot behaves no different than it would without a change in the land disturbing activity. So if you put, we require retention ponds or, diversion swales, those elements, because the DNR code says if you disturb the land, it has to behave as if it wasn't disturbed. You have to do something to your site to make it, I guess, behave. Like all these put in underground detention. Other places will put kind of swales around the outside just to try to hold it. I try not to say a pond because a pond is a very, it's a one thing, but there's ways to make it so the water doesn't just run off the site.
So in getting it, is the answer yes, you would have required something would have mitigating efforts of some way, shape, form to control water?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I could be.
Can I ask a question?
Hold on, Gary, just hang on a second. I don't want to get too far from the weeds here. I want to get the public comments wrapped up and then we can move this forward. So Steve, go ahead.
No, if there's two sewer inlets or whatever you want to call it, where they have the grate that is there. I mean, we end up cutting the lawn around it in the front along Concord Avenue. There's two of them there. The water that comes from USAM itself generally flows that way. If we get an exceptional rainfall like we did, it overwhelmed the system. We don't have a problem during the winter. We don't have a problem anytime. But when we got that big rainstorm, that's when things were a problem. But it would have been a problem everywhere because everybody got 4 inches of rain in literally about an hour. So requiring something for a 100-year flood just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. But if adding a little bit of height where that, you see where the map that I sent there, if you look, there's a portion that it actually flows to the south. If adding some height there in the parking area makes sense, we could do that to get it to, go more towards Concord Avenue. But put in a pond, it's a steep slope right there. I can't imagine it doing anything.
I guess that's why I said it's not always necessarily a pond. It's some way of grading it so that it reduces the increased flow.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Any other public comments? I guess that would be up to the rest of the
I
planning
just wondered
commission.
if you can look at the thing that Aaron had pulled up, so you can see the previous, the permeable area that was there.
That's in the packet.
Yeah, that's in the packet. We'll get into that.
It's in the one link.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, hearing none, I'm gonna close the public comment period. I know, we'll get to Gary in a second here. Recommendation from staff.
We gave you a draft, additional use permit.
Okay. What page is that on?
Well, so my recommendation is actually on the RFC, so it's basically it's pretty much the standard ones that we have for the personal storage facility. So there's 5 of them. It's on page 25. Oh, yeah, 25.
Okay. All right, so there's a recommendation, discussion and action by the plan commission. I'm gonna go to Gary first because he's been waiting. Gary, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Michael, I don't know the full history, Steve, maybe you could answer that question as well, but when this work got done, that you had moved, or you said you didn't add any more, or you did add more, Steve, or was that true or not true, or did you add more units or more? Did you take green space out?
No, it wasn't green space. The whole hill, if you would, the whole lot was stuff that Teal brought in 29 years ago. I mean, they spent a ton of money bringing in fill, and it was crushed rock, it was sand, it was everything you can think of. Ultimately, they just scattered their parking everywhere. So in the buildings that are on the westerly side that we did add, there was already parking that was there of campers and trailers, and we did have some containers already there. So basically, we scraped all of the junk out of there, all of the clay, all of the dirt, all of the particles, and we took it. My brother-in-law ended up running it through his screens or whatever, separating the rocks out of it and all that kind of junk. But that happened after, I think it was the summer after we did that. So we did add some stuff, but we didn't change elevations, and all we brought in was a little bit of crushed gravel, just because the stuff that was there was not it wasn't a drivable layer. It was just this mix match of stuff that the excavators brought in all those years ago. So basically what we did was we tried to clean up the site, and we changed the parking from being scattered and going east and west to going north and south, and hauled out the old trailers, to Jaegers, and there were some old containers that Jaeger came over and took and stuff like that. We just kind of tried to clean everything up.
So did you
But we
raise the
didn't-
grade, Steve? By
We
adding
didn't
the
do
road
anything
base?
with it. No, we didn't. Just from an expense standpoint, it didn't make sense to do that. And I guess when you walk the property, you can see that, what was between the buildings that we added and the fence, it's like 10 foot or whatever it is, 12 foot. Nothing's been changed. It's the same. I mean, we didn't want to change elevations or that kind of thing. That wasn't the purpose to put in the containers. The containers themselves, they're not cemented in, they're not attached. It used to be a cheap way of having storage facilities, but they're not screwed into the ground anywhere. They're resting, on either timbers or on some concrete pads.
Okay, one more question I had for Michael, then. Michael, if his disturbance is under 1 acre, he's not required to do a stormwater permit, is he?
If it's under 1 acre, no. We recently relooked at the stormwater bill charged this property, and there was about a 1.4 acre difference between what it was being billed at based on the 2005 kind of rate versus where we're at now. So at some point over the last 15 to 20 years, there was an increase from green space to impervious area. that might have happened in 2006, it might have happened in 2010. I don't know what year that necessarily happened. But between 2005 and 2020, there was over an acre of land disturbing activity.
But if it was done in two chunks, let's say half an acre and half an acre, he would not have been required to, correct?
We still do, because otherwise everybody would do that, Steve. Everybody would disturb 0.9 acres. And then they'd come back the next year and be like, oh, now I'm adding this parking lot. So now, they disturb 1.4 acres, but they don't do it all
But
at one time.
I think we're talking about, Steve Minell, did you own this property when did you own this property? Or when did you take over managing or running, or was this in the family, or can you give us a little history here, please?
Yeah, so Bud Levine, who owns the land where the log cabin is, he was approached by the village or the city of Schofield for redevelopment of that site. This site was picked out. It was all, open land or whatever you want to call it. There was nothing there. And this site was chosen to move those containers to. And that was done about 29 years ago. Through all of this process, Bud ended up selling it to Sandy and Butch Marquardt, which are my wife's mom's cousin from out in Marathon. My mother-in-law grew up out in Marathon, and they were cousins. So Sandy ended up buying it from Bud Levine and his family, and then when her son ended up committing suicide, Jodine went there. My wife went there to work for her and help figure things out for about 3 years, and then we ended up buying it from Sandy, and then Sandy continued to live there for 2 or 3 years after we had that. Now, we purchased not the property, we ended up purchasing the stock because there were some tax issues with Sandy, and it was structured that way by our attorney, Dave Eckert, and her attorney. So that's kind of how things evolved there.
What kind of time frame though? When did you guys purchase this, Steve?
We purchased the stock about 10 years ago, give or take.
Okay, so you go back to say 2014 or about 2014 maybe?
Yeah, somewhere in there, yes.
And how much change do you feel from 2014 if they pull aerials? How much acreage do you feel you disturbed?
Not when you're saying disturbed, there was there's somewhere there's pictures of the piles of dirt that were located on this site. There was also pictures of the old container. So you drag out an old container and scrap it out at Jaeger's. It's not like hooking up your camper and driving away. There was stuff that was done, and I remember I had my brush hog over there with the tractor, cutting some of the weeds because I wasn't going to do anything with a lawnmower going through there and stuff. So when you're saying disturbing it,
disturbance is how much green space got taken out of and put gravel down. So when you have green spaces, there's different gallons per minute of percolation rates that they put towards it versus a roof or a hard surface, or I won't say hard surface, but a gravel surface.
Some of the pictures will show. Yeah, but some of the pictures will show that where we put in that driving area for the campers, all we did was lay down the same, crushed rock or whatever it is, 1 inch crushed granite.
Do you have the packet on your phone?
Yes, I do, Steve.
No, I don't.
Because a lot of the historical information as to how we got here.
Well, yeah, and I'm trying to ask Steve those questions just as far as the timeline. That's all I'm trying to do is get a timeline established with it. If there's different owners, I don't think the intent of Steve was to continue to only pull half-acre parcels out of it. I think there's a justification that Steve, is there an issue with trying to put a berm to maintain the water on your property and not flood the Wildex?
Well, it doesn't flood. What I guess my point was that there hasn't been a problem ever before. I mean, we had a problem one time when we got 4.3 inches. Well, I had problems because my driveway off of Concord had a foot of water over it. I mean, that coming off of the building across the way from Matthews and the side stuff, the ditches are completely full. Those pictures that I sent in, you know, reflect all of that. And that was an isolated incident. As far as
We've
putting
got
a
all
berm-
those, we've got all those pictures, Steve. Roy's been waiting to talk, so I'm gonna let Roy
Okay.
have a moment here.
My biggest issue
Go
when I
ahead.
read this, my biggest issue when I read this was plain and simply, I didn't see anything regarding addressing the water in the cup or the drainage. And that's why I wanted to specifically ask that question. Would it, if he had asked for this when at the time prior to disturbing or doing whatever addition he did, would you have been required that you would had to have addressed it? If that answer is yes, and this document cup doesn't have it, which I don't see it, I just don't think that's compatible, right? To me, it's,
Well,
you
I
know,
have to disagree with Roy based on some history that I have. So, Wassa Supply was on Bayberry and Concord. And we added on to that multiple times, and I'm very familiar with the storm system that we have there, that the fact is that it's inadequate to deal with a total amount of hard or impermeable surface that's there. But at the time that this was built, I knew Bud Levine very well. And I know the guy that set up the containers over there, and the property is like the history says, Bud was able to move those over there. Well, if you guys, you know, that have been around here, remember, they dredged the lake, you know, where the Eau Claire River, you know, behind the dam, that's where all the fill came from, behind the log cabin, you know, where the hotel now and all that is. That was all filled from that. And at the same time, Bud filled this site on Concord to get it up to a level that he perceived would be the storage use and expanded. Steve, the fence has always been in the same place, has it not?
Yeah, the fence hasn't been moved. It wouldn't make sense. I mean, I was concerned that
So
I
that's
was
a
gonna
bench-
have to add with, you know, an opaque fence or something, but no, we didn't change anything.
Okay.
So I was driving back and forth there every day, you know, and so that storage facility with that fence has been there as long as I can remember. And so Steve's done nothing to change the grade of the property there. All of that dirt that was left there was the extra stuff that Bud had in there to continue to expand that. Well, they filled it, and that's why the piles were there, is because they didn't need any more than that. But never did anything about it. It looked like hell, you know, when weeds grew up around there. There wasn't any green space. It was all impermeable at that time. And so the green that's around the edges really hasn't changed. The issue that Steve had when it rained that hard, I'm very familiar with what happened, you know, to us at Weston Supply too, when we had that much runoff. The reality is that if he had gone for this conditional use permit back then, he didn't add anything to the hard surface that's there now, you know, so the building is an addition for sure.
But the building is sitting on surface that already existed.
Was hard, yes, and was already hard. So I'm saying he didn't do anything that would have asked you guys to consider, you know, would you require a retention pond? The only question that I would think that Michael would have had would be grading. And that's exactly what happened with the Crystal addition. They added a significant amount of hard surface, more than what was there. And I can see why that evolved into that problem. So to me, the issue isn't necessarily, would you ask Steve to put in a retention pond? It'd be more about, go shoot some grades out there and see if there's something that we could do, maybe as Gary suggests, to put a berm in there that would force that water when it gets to be extensive to run the Concord where it should. But again, it's not gonna be picked up. If it really rains hard, just like Steve's pictures, that's what you have, is we have a flooded street.
Joe, I think you and I are in agreement. My only point I was trying to make was, I didn't know if this cup had addressed that, you know, having Michael review it, it didn't sound like it did. It sounds like it should. And I just wanted to raise that as a point of discussion. Are we jumping ahead of where, you know,
Sure.
And should we have, and Michael might review it and go, everything's great. We don't need to do anything.
I agree with you as well. And that's where my point was trying to come across is, did you strip topsoil and take sod and grass out of there and put road base in?
I'm not in favor of a retention pond. I'm not in favor of anything because I'm not qualified to make that determination.
Well, and I think for me too, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody sitting in this room or anybody who wrote when I look at these photos right here from that rain event, and when was this, 2021?
Hey, can I just say something?
Can I, just give me 2 seconds and then I'll,
Okay.
I see ponding everywhere. I see ponding along the road ditches in these photos. I see it on Steve's property. I see it literally everywhere. So for me to sit here based off these photos and think that this water is coming from his property when he also has water ponding on his property, that's a little bit of a pain point for me.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was just gonna say that event that the pictures are from is from 2021, which I'm guessing was probably a big rain event day. I didn't hear from anybody on Ross Avenue that day. The calls we got were in 2019, 2020, 2018, from the Wildeck family about land activity happening behind them causing additional runoff. Were they extreme events like that one in 2021? I don't know. But they did observe something changing behind them at that time that was increasing their runoff. And there are gonna be extreme events where you throw your hands up and you go, there's nothing we're gonna do, the system can't handle it. You know, we talk about all the time with, you know, the pattern of development, you know, Crystal Finishing has, they put in that parking lot expansion where they plug in their diesel trucks. I forget what year they did that in. 15 years ago, they would have been able to fill in their parking lot, put in those posts, and it would have been fine. When they did it most recently, they had to put in, they have a little pond there at the corner of Bayberry and Ross Avenue to control that runoff. And so I get that historically things maybe happened and it went well. But if that was dredging from the river, that's got organic material. There is stuff that's gonna grow. If you look at the old aerials, it is green. Maybe it's not perfect topsoil, maybe it's not, you know, a yard, a lawn, but it did have a vegetative cover. So some of that, even just the grass on the ground, the weeds sticking up, that does slow down water coming from the surface. So if that, even if the weeds were just cut and a little bit of hard surface, hard base was put down, that would change the velocity and the intensity of that rain, of any water falling off. So
Hey,
I'm not saying a pond needs to go in, but something should look at the grades or what could be done to try to mitigate and reduce that to the extent practicable.
How, is there a photo? Cause I have the photo here in the packet that I'm assuming is recent with the buildings circled that were added at 2 different points in
Can you bring
time.
up the historical?
But I'd like to see a photo from like the 2010 to 2014.
Bring up the first
I'll-
document.
This is probably the cleanest way to look at it. So if you go on the county's website, they keep track of historical photos. So this is 2000, if it clicks. Come on.
And Michael, I agree with you 100%. That vegetation, whether it's weeds or not, they will make their own topsoil and leaves and whatever it may be. And you're right, that those will really slow down the amount of water that's going to go past there. Now you put a hard surface, it's going to fly right past there. So I agree, they probably did notice something. They did, because for so many years prior, it had some sort of weeds, or it may not be, you know, stripped topsoil or whatever it may be, but you're right, it had probably had some sort of vegetation on it.
Yeah, so this is 2000, so the storage units are up there.
That's 2000.
That was 2000, so now you go to 2005, there was some expansion.
That was the 2003 was the last like site plan permit that was
Okay.
taken out there.
So they had a permit for that.
So this was
2003.
permitted.
Okay.
2005, I think we finally, or 2010, we finally start getting color. Come on. Oh, sorry, click clicked on Weston, not the county. So this is 2010. So there's, you know, outline of still green over here.
That's before you even owned it though, right?
That would have been before, yeah, so 2015. 2015 to 2010 doesn't look like there's really much of a change, maybe a little bit of parking and then,
That would have been at 2015, March of 2015 is when we adopted the new code. So that's where our starting point would have been with them.
yeah, so then this is today. So really, you know, it's this strip here,
And what is the acreage of the entire site?
6 point something.
6.95.
yeah, 6.95.
Can you pull the graphic back up? So
Yep.
I was there today and walked it, cause I don't know, picture tells 1,000 words, but one eyeball tells more. So I walked through the yard and my estimation, I'm not a whatever engineer, we got one in here though. I'm gonna guess like we're the top of that, let's say dot 18 or dot 19. Down a little bit from your mouse, like from right there north, that all pitches north to Concord. And from that 19 to the bottom of the road base, that has a very slight, maybe 1 foot grade in that 100 feet, whatever's there. And then from the bottom of the road base to the property line, where the fence was, that Joe had mentioned that height never changed, the fence was always there. That's gotta be 5 or 6 feet different from the back of the parking lot, and that's all grass. And then if you look where the fence is on the south side of the fence, there's already a berm or like a makeshift drainage ditch built that starts. And I only walked to the corner of Steve's property here, but that starts from what I could see farther east of that building in the bottom right corner. It likely goes behind that apartment building as well, to the right, but goes all the way to the corner where that 16 or 18 is there at the corner of Steve's property. So all of the water that's shed there off of those are garages, right, where it says 168 and 170. All the water from those garages, which there's no water management off that either, it just sheds off, and there's no.
Eaves.
There you go, yeah, there's no trough off of there, but that all sheds into that ditch or that makeshift drainage channel, all goes west, and those two buildings are higher than the parcel farthest in the corner. And that all sheds to the west. And then it comes south. There's also, I believe the parcel to the west of the Wildeck, that other multifamily unit there, yeah. The downspouts from there run into that same channel, if you will, or cobblestone. They flow into that as well. So all the water from east, west, north, south, all of the water comes from there. It's not just what's coming off of my nose yard.
So which is one of the properties either to the east or west of the USAM property, the one that does Crystal own both of those?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is
Crystal
that-
bought, the one way to the east was actually, Bob Wagman owned that, and then he leased it out to, the trucking firm out of, Marshfield. I forget the name off the top.
So which
But-
one of those
but-
was the one that was added to?
The one on the left,
This
on the
one.
west,
Okay,
That one.
and then the retention pond that's there just looks like, I don't know, 4 foot north and south of riprap that runs east and west throughout. It's not a big,
it runs between those two properties to the south
no.
or no?
It just runs, it's right next to the building.
Okay.
It's like butted up against the building, so the runoff from the water that comes off the building can sit there and go down the ground.
Okay,
But even that, in the document that was furnished here, says that overflows at times too. And Ross Ave is probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 feet lower than my house parking lot.
Mhm.
So that entire thing is, there's a huge, I don't know, does it show you topography on that?
Yeah,
Should have it. Yeah.
Yes, and the one I got to estimate heights, something you walked an hour ago.
so I mean, the back, that one, so that's a 1204 elevation. 1206. $1208. So I mean, the edge of this parking lot shows up being about 4 feet higher than what would be the
Yeah,
backside there, and then
just one height, but it's calibrated.
yeah, 1210. This is 1210, and let's see if we keep going up. 1212. So I mean, it looks like this would be
Somewhere right about in there would be about where it
That's-
splits and sheds south instead of north.
correct, yeah. So the high point, yeah, would kind of be probably about right where Jim was pointing out, right?
Michael, can you hit the one just north of where it says Lot A, the next contour? Right there.
So it's 1210 again, back to 1210, so
So we know, so what we have is right where it says 315.18. That's our high contour that we follow all the way around there. So we go between that, the one where it says 315, Michael, if you go back to that contour, that line. Right there, yeah. So between that contour and the next contour, we have that little slice that's lower than the rest of the parking lot. If you go to that 315 one that you were just pointing at, and you go down to the one just south of that, that little space right there, that's the only area from there all the way between those lines that is lower in this parking lot, that's not shedding to Concord.
no, well, so the high point is here. This one's 1212.
Yeah, yep, understood. But you're still going to 1210. And
Correct, yeah.
isn't the, I mean, you're still pushing everything towards, besides that little corner on the far side. And Wildeck's property that they're having a concern with is where?
Right there.
Right here.
Yes, exactly. So if we look at the 315 contour, what is that number again? Nope. Right by 315. Go straight up, Michael. Right there.
This one's 1210.
Yep. 1212 or 1210. And then what's the one below it now?
That one's 1208.
Yep. So then we go to the north and we got, what was the north one again?
So the high point right now is
Yes, right on that far side. Yep.
this is 1212, and then we got 1210 here and 1210 here. So
Pretty flat through there.
it's
So-
fairly
So the really, what we have to contend with is that little bit where those two little cars are at the end of the 315, from there over to where the snowbank is, that contour is lower where it's heading towards the number 432. Right?
yeah.
If we could block some of that and maintain it or retain it over there, that would probably help those units.
I don't have a problem at all. In order to just get this moving along and be done, I don't have a problem. You're talking about a foot berm of, material or whatever, right? I mean, it's not that big of a deal. If we did that, we'd pull back the rock that's there, and whatever we have to put in, whatever Todd's able to do and put in there in his time, we do that. But we're talking about a foot elevation.
Well,
The
really,
change-
Steve, we're talking more than that. We're talking 3 feet, because you got a 1210 and you got a 1208. So the 1208 needs to be at like 1211.
But the 1208 is already halfway down the hill. What I'm saying, I don't know what the actual elevation
Right.
is.
So my,
Okay.
It's already partway down that hill. So
Steve and Gary, my question here at this point is how can we move forward?
Yeah.
Talked about this for an hour. the whole point of this was to move forward, get this cleaned up. I mean, at this point, nothing, I understand that there's a
Well, I
request.
think Steve, I think Steve is trying to tell you, he's willing to put some fill in there.
Well, I should allow you to.
But I don't have a problem putting something there to shield it. I don't think it's as significant as what Gary was saying as far as 3 feet. I'm saying whatever that elevation is, we'll shoot that, and we can change that so that it slopes to the front. But putting my point was when things were presented initially, they talked about putting a pond. It's not going to change anything to that. But if we need to put a berm in here to get this moved along, it's not going to be that significant in my mind. You know, that
Steve, in all honesty, Steve,
Right, Steve, Gary, we're getting way off into the weeds here. Let's bring this back and figure out how we can move this forward. We can't do this with two people who aren't even in this room arguing. It's not gonna work.
I don't think we're arguing, but
You guys are talking over each other. Nobody can understand what you're saying. So I guess we have the determination in the packet. Does anybody, what's your thoughts? I don't know if you want to go one by one here and give one last shot at this or what we want to do.
My only thought is if he had come prior to any changes, it would have went through review, right? And that I don't think has happened. I'm not in favor of any particular solution regarding, but I really wonder if can we approve the conditional use permit subject to a review by Michael? With whatever, with him meeting whatever requirement is determined. I don't know.
Dave, what do you think?
I don't think we've got all the facts yet. I think somebody like Michael or some engineering has got to go out and look at that and shoot some grades and find out exactly what is viable for rectifying this in some manner or fashion. And I'm not saying, a berm, I'm not saying a pond or a detention, whatever, but I think the engineering and the science has got to go out there first and get a good handle on what is feasible at this point in time.
Okay, Joe?
I guess I'm agreeing in that the conditional use permit should be approved, subject to grade review and potential negotiation with Steve to correct that.
Okay, Jim?
See that most of this site work was done before he bought it in 10, and we didn't enforce anything yet, right? So this is the first time in 20 years it's been here. I don't know if there's been other complaints than the one homeowner. Not that their complaint doesn't matter, because it surely does. But I think this entire area is maybe engineered poorly. It shouldn't all fall on one guy to fix. Even if I know it's his whole yard to the north, still gonna get water in the backyard from Crystal and from the properties to the east. And I couldn't see the property to the west if that runs into theirs as well. It does run into theirs, yeah, because I said the downspout was in there. So I agree that we should approve the conditional use permit. But I can't speak to that we should require any drainage changes.
Gary?
I agree with the conditional use. That's where I'm struggling, trying to see what's comparable to. I'm trying to work with Steve to see if he's feasible enough to try to correct some of it. That's all I was going for, because I think that's going to be the sticking point. Because I believe that what was there, whether was weeds or not, it was still a hard surface. And I believe those contours, unless you can pull up your maps from 10 years ago and the contours have changed, Michael, it's pretty hard for us to require him to do something.
Or 2012 contours. We don't know what the current contours are.
Yeah, I guess the county doesn't fly the LiDAR for the contours as consistently as they redo the aerials, so I guess that's where we always, when a new site does come in, it is on the owner, the developer, to provide that grading plan. I guess I don't do it for them. They provide the plan, we review it, we go, okay, yeah, that makes sense, that meets what it's supposed to do, so. I guess that's, you know, even residential houses, we make sure that people aren't filling their side yard so that now all of a sudden all their water, their sump pump or something is going straight at their neighbor's house, so. It's, you know, some of them are very sophisticated, some of them are kind of crude, but, you know, generally we do require some kind of drainage plan, just so we know and the owner understands what it is that they're maybe modifying or doing with their lot.
I think for me, I think the biggest thing for me that I'm trying to remember is that we're looking at something that's already been in existence for 10 years. And based off what I've seen here, I would tend to agree with Jim's comments. I can't say for certainty that Steve's property is causing whatever issues are occurring, because it wasn't just, yes, he may have changed some very minor things, but there were some other players on that same block that made some pretty significant improvements that also did things. And while I understand that Crystal Finishing put in that drainage pond or ditch or however you want to refer to it, it sounds like there was an admission that still overflows. So is that contributing to the, I can't say for certainty that this is all on this property. And that's my pain point.
Michael, was that an approved stormwater with the gallon per minute load, or did somebody just dig a ditch in and put breaker rock in it?
I believe that was done before I was working here, so.
Tim was here.
Yeah,
That was a long
if
time
Tim was
ago.
here, that was before me.
Okay. And that might be some of the issue as well. So, I mean, it's tough because none of us know what the contours were, what the contours are. And I think everybody's trying to do the right thing to appease and move on. So I don't know where we go with it. I think the conditional use should be put in there, and I think there should be some kind of compromise some way or another on trying to help with the neighbors or do something. But I don't know that should be all on Steve's shoulders either.
So with the conditional use permit, you have 60 days from the hearing to actually issue it. So you don't have to do anything this evening. You could require him to shoot grades or something like that if you want it that way. We could come back in May and talk more about it, but you always, with any type of hearing, you do not have to take action right away if that's something that you don't want to do. But I just wanted to put that out.
Jim, go ahead.
I move to approve conditional use permit 2024-0072, allowing the use of a personal storage facility at 3107 Concord Ave with the following conditions. The 5 that are listed in the packet.
If I can interrupt, do we need to go through
It is in the packet. So if we probably should do that. I would agree. There is the determination that we have to go through.
Yeah, just before you make your motion.
So
Okay.
So I didn't mean to interrupt.
I will withdraw my motion.
If the rest of the planning wants to, it's not printed off. It starts on page,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the dedetermination starts on page 2018.
It's on page 28 is where
Well,
the determinations.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know. Yes.
Page 28.
Yep.
Yes.
You ready? So is the proposed conditional use consistent with the comprehensive plan, this chapter, and all other plans, programs, and ordinances adopted by the village?
Yes.
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 The proposed conditional use in its proposed location and as depicted on the required site plan will not result in a substantial or undue adverse impact on nearby property, the character of the neighborhood, environmental factors, traffic factors, parking, public improvements, public property or rights of way, or other matters affecting the public health, safety, or general welfare, either as they now exist or as they may in the future be developed as a result of the implementation of the provisions of this chapter, the comprehensive plan, or all other plans, programs, and ordinances adopted by the village. Yes.
Yes.
Does the proposed conditional use maintain the desired consistency of land uses, land use intensities, and land use impacts as related to the environs of the subject property?
Yes.
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 Is the proposed conditional use located in an area that will be adequately served by and will not impose an undue burden on any of the improvements, facilities, utilities, or services provided by public agencies serving the subject property?
Yes.
Yes. Do the potential public benefits of the proposed conditional use outweigh potential adverse impacts of the proposed conditional use after taking into consideration the applicant's proposal and any requirements recommended by the applicant to ameliorate such impacts?
Yes.
Yes. I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve conditional use permit 2024-0072, allowing use of a personal storage facility at 3107 Concord Ave. Following conditions, 5 that are listed in the packet on page 25. There is no additional requirement for the applicant to make modifications to the site. The current parking plan, green space, building count, storage container count, and all other aspects relating to the site will be considered compliant with current guidelines.
One second.
So we have a motion by Pincinot and a second by Jordan. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye.
All right, moving on, unfinished business, we have none. New business, project number 2023-0342. Discussion and action on the final plat review for Arrowhead Estates First Edition.
So they are bringing back the 10 lot. This is a rural subdivision that will be adjacent to the Arrowhead Estates Ringel subdivision. It has been approved by the state already. We are very close to finalizing the development agreement. We have a draft, just waiting to get back from Attorney Edie, after Michael made some corrections to take out some of the things that this one does not have, like sidewalks, things like that. Otherwise, it's pretty much ready to go. They've done everything that you guys required in the preliminary plat process. And this would go to the board next week.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, the, Michael has a maintenance, road maintenance agreement, that's all good with Ringo?
We'll get there, yeah.
You said we already plowed the rest of that anyways, correct?
We don't, we turn around at Arrowhead, but
Okay.
so when we initially talked with the town of Ringel, the previous subdivider was looking at this. They pretty much verbally said, yeah, you guys could just do the whole subdivision, that'd be great. Which we'd bill them for, just like we do bill the town of Weston for our time. So I don't see that as a hindrance or a holdup. It'd just be a.
Yeah, I agree.
Michael, you're okay with that cul-de-sac for the trucks turning there? That's big enough for yours and emergency vehicles, correct?
Yeah, it should be. Everything's, I think it's a 50-foot radius, so, yeah.
And I'm assuming that road is just for future expansion. That is designated for road right away.
Correct, yeah, so the actual project will stop at the cul-de-sac. That little southern spur won't exist
Yep.
it'll exist on paper, but not in reality.
So then if the road ever goes through, then Michael, that those people will have access through that utility for their driveway. And then if the road gets put through, they'll just have to get function in and out of their house if the road gets extended. And it's not like it's sewer and water out there, so it should be fine.
Correct, yeah, I mean, they'll likely use that future right of way as their driveway in the interim.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
What's your pleasure?
Move to recommend the Board of Trustees approve resolution number 2024-009, approving the final plat of Arrowhead Estates First Edition.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mumper, second by Garrett, because he was louder. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried. Item number 7, special exception sign permit request for on-building signage at Green Heck Turner Community Center, 6400 Alderson Street.
Yeah, so with Green Neck Current Community Center wrapping up, they applied for their sign permit. The sign facing Jelnik is 54 feet by 13 feet, so about 659 square feet if you draw a rectangle around it, which exceeds the allowed size, which is 259 feet, since that is the length of that side of the building. So they are seeking a special exception to exceed that. And that's what it'll look like facing Jelnik.
I think it looks very nice.
I'll make a motion to approve that as presented.
Motion by Deason,
Second.
second by Mumper.
The signage on the east side of the building is good.
Correct, yep, that one has like 850 feet of building facade there, so yeah, they meet the standards on that sign.
Does that, since that's all connected now, right, with TC Everest High School?
I believe so.
So how do you do that calculation? Is that off the
Just off of Google.
9 million lineal feet?
It's just off of
It's
the
just off of the, yeah, it's,
wall.
they did,
Just off the addition is how you calculate the signage? That's how we're,
yeah, since it's technically two different uses there, that's how we would look at it. It's shown there in the attached
sure.
the elevation that they used. They didn't use the whole high school, they just used the addition part of it right at the top there.
So that wall.
That's a side facing the high school, or the parking lot, excuse me.
And you caught this or Graphic House caught this?
Graphic House supplied this here, but I caught that the sign was too big initially.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I have one. Was there a fee for this? Because I thought, didn't we waive some of that?
Oh, we did, yeah.
There was $100 fee which Graphic House paid for the special exception, and then that's on top of the sign permit fee as well, which I haven't billed out yet since we haven't got approval for it.
We can waive the other. I think, I'll go back and look, but I think the board did waived all of it. We just forgot with the special exception. He wasn't here when that happened.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's why I asked. I just wanted to make
No,
sure.
that's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we had a motion by Beeson, seconded by Mumper. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9, nope, I'm sorry, I missed 8. Item number 8, special exception sign permit for on-premise group directional signage at Green Heck Fan Corporation Business Campus, 2103 Ross Ave and 4545 Alderson Street.
So Green Heck again, not the community center, however. So Green Heck has 21 different buildings spanning across Weston, Wausau, Schofield, and Mosinee. And their plan is to do quote unquote like campus-wide signage, which will help with parking, finding buildings, finding entrances, and et cetera. Our code labels that as an on-premise group directional signs. So of the 21 buildings, there are 2 of them in Weston, which is building 6 there on the south side of Ross and building 10 on the east side of Alderson. So Ross Ave has 3 total proposed signs. 2 are freestanding signs that are 21 square feet. One is right in front of the building, one is on the corner of Metro and Ross. The other one will be just a on-building sign, which will identify that it is building number 6. Yeah, there's an image of what the one in front of the building will look like. So our code only allows one of these on-premise group directional signs per lot. So that's one reason why this is here for a special exception, because it can be approved or more can be approved on a site plan. So that's kind of this process here, because they will have 3 on-premise group directional signs for building 6. And then likewise, building 10 is actually going to have 5 of them. 1 on-building sign identifying that it's building 10. And then 4 freestanding signs. 2 of them will be the same size as the one on building 6 of the 21 square feet and 7 feet tall. And then the one that's on the corner of Ross and Alderson is going to be 13 feet tall, which exceeds the maximum height of 8 And it will be 52 square feet, which exceeds the maximum permitted size of 50 square feet. And then the one up by the railroad track there as well, it's also at 13 feet tall, so that also needs special exception. Very confusing because there's a lot of signs there, so.
Jim?
Make a motion to approve the special exception sign permit allowing.
Do we need to approve anything tonight? Cause it looks like it says no action is needed.
No, it does. You're on the wrong, 64, page 64.
Oh, Jude, I'm sorry.
It's in the
I got
next
too
one.
far down. I'm sorry.
Yep.
My
I
apologies.
peeled it last time, you got a good time. We get shake. I make a motion to approve the special exception sign permit allowing Green Heck Fan Corporation to install the proposed on-premise group directional signs on 2103 Ross Ave, 4545 Alderson Street, to include the on-building signs as well. I don't see that in the language.
Second.
Motion by Pincinel, second by Deason. On the question? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And sorry, I skipped ahead. I don't know how I got down to that next one, but I did. Okay, item number 9, discussion of future growth patterns desired in the village, specifically in the southeast quadrant of the village.
Okay, I know I said this map was done, but it's not. There's an area in the southeast portion, basically kind of Weston Avenue. When you look at that map, it's kind of all the gray. And that green there in the corner, southeast corner. That we've never really talked about land use patterns on. It's always been, well, since the 2006 comprehensive plan, just left as ag. And that's what it's looking at right now. It would be put just in agriculture. So what's happening is the paper company, I think, had land down in that area. We're also kind of moving into that area with sewer and water, having that availability in some areas. So off of Weston Avenue, Michael can kind of speak to that area up there. I'm getting calls and pressure for development along a road called East Nick that some of you might be familiar with. It comes off of Shorey Avenue in Kemichik, and it's kind of a dead end. Public Works staff had kind of built it up a little bit. There's more housing on the south side of East Nick in Cronenwater. There'd been some housing pressure down there in the last 5-10 years with some larger houses. The land to the north that was in the village has now basically is starting to get bought up. It's either being used as hunting land, or we've got a few people that have purchased rather large tracts down there for potential future development. The way this future land use map shows, the only way anything can happen down there besides ag would be for them to request a comprehensive plan map amendment. Some of the things that I'm getting proposals on is like 2 to 5 acre subdivision development down there. There is an issue that we'll need to go to the board to talk about, and that kind of came up a few years ago. Nick Avenue, that East Nick, we actually have road right of way out to the village line, but there's probably, is it a 40? Or less than that?
In Ringo,
Yeah, Ringo and Reed.
it's like a third of an acre, or
So
a third of a mile.
it can't get out to J, but it's super close. You can stand at the end of it and look at J out there. So well, it was during COVID, because I remember being in meetings with masks at Cronenwater, talking about the road. Keith, President Maloney have been involved with some of the town chairs and gone to some of the town meetings. The road right of way is there. Neither of the towns want to essentially build that road. Cronenwater also doesn't want to build that road, but my understanding would be there would be some development pressure on the south side there too, potentially. And right now we don't have, I think we have the road built to the first one that Roman got a call about.
Yeah, I got a call on Friday from the owners of a 160 acre multiple parcel down there. And there is road, albeit minimally maintained as best as possible. There's road to that, but there's not to the additional parcel that's been talked about.
So we own all the right of way.
So the right of way is there.
Except for the last like third
Well,
of
no, the right of way is there. It's just, so the right of way is already acquired, but it's just sitting there.
right, but
Yeah.
part of it's not in the village of Weston,
No,
all the
right.
way out to Jay. How?
And actually, we only own half of East Nick because Croninwater
Just
has
the
the
north
other
half.
half.
Okay,
So it's kind of this, there's a huge conundrum down there because there's 4 communities involved.
well,
So can you make it a one-way, Michael?
Sure.
Pay the north half or?
And so there's development pressure down there, and I mean, Michael and I have talked when Keith was here. You need to have another access out. I mean, it's gonna start developing if you let one subdivision go in there, like I said, 160 acres is owned by a development, like a group of people who are now asking questions about development.
well, at least for me, I think it's become more of a public safety issue in recent years, especially with the development down there. Because when I was a kid, when I was in high school, there was nothing out there. That's where everybody went on Friday night, I'm just being honest.
No, I know that.
But it's changed to the point where I know in the spring times, especially Chief Finke cannot get fire trucks down there. Because the road becomes too muddy and almost impassable with those big trucks. They're too heavy. They can't, they're sinking into the mud down there. Not only that, but because there's no other access, there's no way for them to turn around, even if they were able to get down there. So for me, I understand that. I guess we probably should maybe try to talk with Croninwater again. But if that's not gonna go anywhere, then maybe this is something that we just have to do on our own.
And that would be a board discussion, but we just wanted to talk about potential of the land use down there. Cause right now this is an ag and it's gonna, I mean, we'll talk a little bit. It's probably gonna be a few months before this comes. I know I wanted it next month. It's not gonna happen with some things that are happening. So we have some time. I'm not comfortable changing it to the rural density residential until that question gets answered by the board or the boards of the communities on that road, on how it gets done. I wouldn't want to see any development down there without it,
Without the road,
without the road.
okay.
And Nick doesn't go through to J, you said, right? That
No, like if he can bring a map up, I don't.
I'm looking
I-
at Google Maps and they call it Timber Ridge, but it's like a very thin dot.
Yeah, it's forest. It might be passable in a UTV.
Yeah, I've been down there, you can like.
Snowmobile trail.
It's Timber Ridge because that's Ringle. It's where it crosses over into Ringle.
Yeah, it's Ringle and Reed on the east side there.
The conversations that Jen, just sorry for stepping in, but I have some involvement in, so I don't want to be talking too much or have any kind of voting on any of this, but the talks we had with Ringle, Reed and Croninwater, it's been a long run for, sometimes it can be hard working with one municipality. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm just saying. Now you put 4 of them in the mix. Ringle wanted us, they called us back after 2 years of having property or wanting to put property, purchasing property for a development back there. Then they called 2 years later after the land was gone and said, hey, would you help contribute to the road? But anyway, now what we have, the last conversations that Mark and I have had with Ringle and Reed were, if somebody decides that they want to build on that property, once the road is in, that there needs to be some assessment back because they're getting value for these properties that are going on each side of this road that are potentially buildable lands, that some of the assessment should go back to Ringle, Reed, or whoever takes that, and same thing with Croninwater, but I'm not sure how you justify Croninwater's. But again, it right now there's some Croninwater gave some permits out last year, or a permit out last year past where the road was improved, and they didn't even know they did that, and it was impassable through the winter or spring, I should say. So I think then the village of Weston and Croninwater it got a little heated, but Michael, you guys, your team went out there and built the road, I believe. I'm not sure if there was help from Croninwater or not, but you guys ponied up and got out there and took care of it. But I think we can get past we just needed to get extended to J. Now you've got valuable buildable property all the way down Nick Avenue that I think you got easy access to get out to J.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, so a road that you can pass all year long is probably about right here. You can see the mouse, zoom out a little bit, see. It's low. Yeah, so Kamichik comes here. Oh. So over the last few years, I think we built about 3/4 of a mile. And I think that, yeah, this is the drainage way that replicates this little finger here. So we got just past that. Okay, so we did about 1/4 mile probably last year, 2 years ago now with Cronin Wetter. So we would have another mile or so in the village of Weston. This is a dirt road that you can drive on during the summer months. It's really just the spring thaw out where it gets a little hairy. And then I got the 1/3 of a mile or so here in Ringel and Reed out to J. So and I know that was one concern when we previously talked about this with law enforcement, emergency services, was if people start putting houses and things back here, there needs to be another access point besides trying to come off of Shorey up there and winding around. So they were more or less saying, if you do that, then you need to make sure we can get to that property from J.
Is there just the one property on the right above your mouse? So where East Nick ends right now, or where the,
Yep, it more or less ends right here.
so is it just that one property from there to J?
Yep, yeah.
And that is in Ringgold, the town of Ringgold, correct?
This one's the town of Ringel and this one's in the town of Reed.
Sure, but so if the right of way shifted north, half a lane, whatever footage that is, could that parcel be annexed to the village of Weston? And now it becomes Weston, now you don't have to fight with another municipality to do that? What does that look like? That just that property owner has to want to come to Weston, right?
The property owner would have to direct annex.
Jim, I don't think there's a problem fighting with them, either municipality. They just don't want to pay for the road right now. And we asked, okay, well, don't pay for it now, but when somebody wants to pull a building permit out, like where Michael's mouse is on Reed's side, or any one of those properties on Reed's side, or any one of those properties on Ringel's side, then they would pay an assessment for the road.
That would recoup those dollars, or it's pennies on the
Yeah.
dollar?
Yes.
Yeah, it'd probably be some kind of prorated agreement where, you know, in year one, you get 100% and maybe you say the road's got, I don't know, whatever, say a 30-year useful life and it would slowly, or, you know.
If you're gonna maintain it.
If we maintain it, that's where we'd just start, those discussions would be between the village and Ringel Reed again. You know, we got joint roads where we will grade it or we'll snow plow it and we then bill our time back. Or if we've got, say it's a horse trade, right? We do this road, you do this other shared road on the other side of the community. And that's what we do with Cronin Wetter. We take care of East Nick, they take care of West Nick. So there's a West Nick on the other side of Huron Street. So Cronin Wetter more or less takes care of that one and we take care of East Nick.
And
So-
Michael, I think the other thing we should probably bring to a little bit of attention, which was the hard part, was I know there was a couple that bought an 80 that they're looking to sell just close by ours. They were gonna pull a building permit. Yeah, yep, you're getting closer, yeah. They were gonna pull a building permit, but if they pull that building permit, no, it was, you're down through the drainage soil, it'd been two to the right. Or, no, right there, sorry, right there. Yep, Smiths, and Laura and Jeremiah. That you guys already went past because Cronin made a boo-boo and allowed a permit to go past on that swampier area. But prior to that, I mean, if anybody pulls a permit, even the guy closest to the end down there, the village or Coronawider still has to get them access to that road, no questions asked. So if somebody pulls a permit for residential home there, you're kind of in a bad spot. I know that's what Keith said. He's lost a lot of sleep over the years because he was always going out there thinking, when is this going to hit me in the face? Mark and I talked about it as well. I think it was trying to do that, and I don't know if it was TARP funds or COVID funds or whatever. And the conversations came about also with the life and safety and police and whatever it may be for ambulances, just passing as well. But we're just trying to do it. I know this came way back from when I first started on the planning commission, and Jen was asking about development and how do we get more residential development. And this is kind of how we started with it. Well, we were shooting for an 80-acre parcel out there. Then I tried working with Ringgold, Reed, Coronawider to get all those municipalities together. And it took almost 2 years. And then by then the 110 acres was sold. And we ended up, just after that, we bought another 110 in Coronawider, another 80 after we got the go ahead, or the thought to go ahead that it was going to get pushed through, or that eventually it would get pushed through. And then we go back to Ringgold, which wanted us to put it in. And then all of a sudden, like Mark had suggested, oh, now somebody else wants it pushed through. Well, we don't want it. We don't want to pay for it. And Reed doesn't want to pay for it either. So there's a process that what we proposed was we were going to do a hard rock development on the south side in Coronawider, which butts Mitch King's and Coronawider's old pit, right? So we were going to do a hard rock quarry development with housing around the ponds as the end result on Coronawider's side, and we would contribute to building the road. And we knew we could get the material from the site to build the roads, and we would be the closest haul. So if it went to public bid, which we've bid it once already, we were considerably lower on our bid because we know the material's right there, and it's 500, 600 feet, 1,000 feet down the road where we got to haul it to. But in order to do that, we also.
So you're just wondering if we would entertain putting housing down there. I mean, the road is more or less a board decision.
Yeah, the road's a.
Yes, 100%. I was just saying, we were trying to there was a lot of moving balls to get everything to go. We would like to do the subdivision there on development for a rural subdivision because they seem to be very popular.
Well, I'd be happy to see more development down there if we can. I guess that.
Yeah, we still have to have a discussion at the board level about the road. But the planning commission would be making a recommendation on the future land use map. And right now that's showing it as ag. In order for them to do that rural subdivision, it would have to go to a rural density residential, which is the second one underneath.
Well, it sounds like that we should recommend no change in zoning if and until the road is done. Right?
Well, in order for the road to happen, we would have to change the zoning. Correct? Is that what?
We just have to have more talks about it because the future land use map just guides us being able to rezone it at some time. But there's also the kicker that if it's on the future land use map and in the comprehensive plan and he comes in, or anybody down there comes and asks for that zoning, it would be compatible
Cause they could get down to a 20.
to the rural density if you change it to that way. So we would probably want to have more of at least something from the board or some kind of something stronger about having that for us to feel comfortable changing it, but we wanted to start talking to you about it.
The other item I would like to throw out there too is you could get development down there along those whole frontage. And right now you could do that. Somebody could pull a permit for a residential house and you still have the same circumstances. You could have 50 houses down that road and still be the life safety issue.
Right.
And if we were willing to help contribute to build the road, it's kind of a no-brainer to, if we could work together as a team to get it done.
Well, this doesn't require action tonight, unlike the last item, right?
Right, it's just starting to kind of talk about that and realize that this is percolating out there, that we're gonna have to talk about development in that. We've never really had to, just because we've concentrated more on Weston Avenue. We've got a lot of other areas that can be developed easier, so it was just never really talked about. We were kind of keeping it in agriculture. There wasn't a lot of landowners that were interested in changing. at that time, but there's just been different factors and just the fact that we're talking about ways to get more housing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had Grosheks that owned almost 600 acres back there, and now they're starting to part with their property. They were wanting to build a golf course in Kronewetter.
It's originally
Yeah.
early.
Well,
2000.
I have faith in Jen and her job personally, so if I guess whatever happens at the board, I guess will lead us into whatever direction we have to go here, correct?
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, so this hatched area. The key calls that potential long-term growth area. So is this also currently ag, or because it's hatched as potential long-term growth, it could be anything?
That was,
Or how does that
yeah,
work?
so in the document, yeah, that was kind of the area that we thought, if you look on, it's on that last page. Says most such areas are zoned AR, agriculture and residential at time of designation. Development-based zoning districts will be assigned following future amendment to this comprehensive plan for the policy to the right. So that was kind of an area when we sat down and talked about it that we figured would probably be the area that would go first, just because there were some things happening down there already. You were working on the sewer and water along Weston. So maybe it's just talking and bringing that down further. I don't know.
And if you hatch mark that as additional potential growth, does it still need a comprehensive plan change with rezoning?
Well, this right now is tied to, no, that won't work for it, because if you read it, it says lands designated with this overlay future land use category may be appropriate for future urban village development following extension of sewer and water. So we had talked about it because you knew it was gonna be close there, that would be an area that could be serviced with sewer and water, and then it would change at that point.
Okay, so
I
that,
think we would have to go with that
so that,
rural density residential for the other part.
okay, I wasn't sure if that was a way to kind of hatch that area off of Nick and then it meant
Yeah.
both, but.
I can look at it some more, but I think that was tied mostly to sewer and water.
Would we be bringing over the rural density more east-west instead of north-south? Cause you wouldn't just wanna put rural density there and then it wouldn't be by any other rural density, right? That, you wouldn't wanna like spot zone it just in that area. So would you bring it more to would you move it east from where it is now? And
You're saying all the ag that's there would turn into rural density?
Well, it just, so all it does is allows that landowner that option in the future. So it doesn't mean it's turning that way, and that's where some of them, especially when things are ag, where they get a little concerned, and we had that discussion along Weston Avenue with some of Gary Buckberger's property. It just gives them future options. It doesn't tie them into that this has to stay into agricultural forever. A lot of times it helps with, sometimes they just want to cut off like a 5-acre parcel for a family member. And we sat down with someone in that area, Roman and I, last week, where they're gonna be dividing, luckily they can divide a 40, have it 2 20s and be okay, but at one point they were talking like smaller lot just for them. So yes, we could follow it along. We could look at it a little bit more to see. There's a farm down there besides Chief Hunt
Yeah,
has his
Chief Hunt
farm.
owns the north 240s on Kamichik. And
Is
then
there
there's
Springville or something, or is that further over?
That's over off Huron.
Okay.
I mean, if anything, we could almost keep that rural density along East Nick. And still leave kind of this middle area as ag, cause
Mhm.
I mean, Kronewetter does have, I think, 4 houses now. I think each of them is on their own 40, but
Right.
there are some residential houses on the Kronewetter side of
5 of them.
5 of them now.
5 on.
Okay, yeah, so there's some.
So if this is ag, it's ag right now, right? So meaning, like how Gary said, well, gosh, a guy could just build a house right there. He would have to build a home meeting the ag,
Right.
right? So it'd have to be on 10 acres or whatever, ag.
So
20
what you
20
would
acres.
typically have is somebody either plopping a house down in the middle and not thinking future of being able to divide it out, or they'll divide it in half.
But he could take that 160 acres and put a tiny home there and zone it ag. And life is good, right?
Yeah, he could have one.
To farm a
Well,
squirrel.
most likely he can't access all of the property because he's not running a road through there.
Right,
So,
but
but yeah.
then we would have to build a road to that, right, to feed his tiny home on 160.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you do.
There's I think a cabin out there right now that the,
You
On the
likely
north
wouldn't issue
side?
a permit.
Yeah, the grow shacks have one over there that they just have campers out there. They just have like 4 or 5 campers in the summer. And they got a little cabin there.
Camping's not housing, and you wouldn't have to
I
issue.
I know, I'm just trying to tell you, that's in Cronawetter. That's on Cronawetter side.
our side, there's like a little cabin up there that I can't remember what the family name is.
On Weston side?
Yeah. They're
Which side, Jen?
east of you, cause
The Loney's property, there's something up there on the north
no,
side.
it's on the south side. I
On the
met
south side?
the dad moved property around there for his sons.
Oh, he's butting up to our 110. They got an easement through ours and they were gonna put a little hunting cabin back there.
When is this going to the board?
Is it gonna go next week?
I think we haven't talked about that.
Maybe possibly next week, at least for the preliminary discussion.
Okay. Well, I don't think we need to see it again then until we figure out what's going on there. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add?
We did want to talk a little bit about an area. I did get a phone call off of the roundabout up on Ross Avenue, and I printed off the sheets and I left them upstairs, but there's a little, I think it's 4 acres right on the roundabout. There's a house there right now that's shifted way over to the east side.
Is that just to the north of the roundabout on north and east?
Yeah, so it
Northeast
would be
corner?
in between the church or the
Mhm.
daycare and that. It's in a Schoonover trust right now, and a realtor called and kind of asked questions about it. I'm thinking the house. I think they're getting ready to, he didn't answer some of my questions, because I was like, well, are you looking at removing the house? Cause he was kind of wondering what they could do with it. Right now, it's just shown as future, would be future residential if it got divided. But they were talking about, potentially like multifamily there. He didn't answer my questions again, like on if they've looked at it, layout on how to get in there, like in the proximity to the roundabout on things. I know Michael and I back, I think when this last comp plan was going through, we both lived out in that neighborhood, so we always thought it'd be a nice little place for like a little commercial node.
I always kind of thought. the
Like a
same
little
thing,
ice
actually.
cream place or
Yeah.
something, just for that neighborhood, a little C-store type thing, so just kind of getting your thoughts on that. It could potentially come into development play, but right now it's listed as low density residential.
Jen, would that be like a spot zoning or is the daycare considered a commercial use?
The daycare is listed, I think, as institutional or it
Okay.
could be in there as a residential. I don't remember what the zoning is out there right now. It's actually owned by a church, so they were originally gonna have church services and they actually have a spot for expansion there. But they never did expand. You can do things with mixed use, so and they were talking about commercial. I don't know, you can have little nodes of commercial too and not necessarily have it be entirely spot zone, but
Would that be a good spot for like the mixed or flex commercial residential? I mean, it says it's carefully designed blend for flex of community, commercial, higher density residential, business, office park, and institutional land uses. The overall concept is to create vibrant places and community gathering spots. I guess that's, like I said, you know, several of us in here have lived out there and we'd see that would be a
Oh, I agree with you. I think it would be a great spot for a lot of, there's a lot of residents in there.
Yeah, even when I lived out there, I like, and this might be unpopular with some of the other people who live, but I even thought of like, even if like a small convenience store or something like that popped up there, that would be a great
We
spot for
talked
something like that.
when-
Kind of like what they have on the corner of X and double X.
correct, yeah.
When Heath Tappy was looking at the Paul's farm, we sat down with him and talked to him about that, of having kind of a mixed, where it was, like, he was looking at neighborhood, and at that point in the code, he could have done like some commercial aspect out there, and then had his, you know, multifamily and single family and stuff like that, cause it's a huge piece of property there, but just on giving something out there, cause there isn't anything.
No, there's nothing. I mean,
You go to
this is
town.
probably gonna sound really lazy, but when I used to live out there, it's like, I gotta drive all the way up to Camp Phillips to get milk, which I know it's not that far.
It
But when
did
you live
feel
out
far.
there,
It does.
It's
I
not
lived out there too. I know.
I know,
Probably uphill too.
yeah, yeah. In the snow.
I couldn't help it, sorry.
No, I would be fine with the mixer flex commercial and,
That is a 4-acre parcel too.
yeah.
Well, we could probably look at the church site too, maybe incorporate that for both of them.
I'm surprised if Quick Trip ate that up.
You're not wrong. I mean, I
Okay,
I looked at that
you can
site, I
enter and
mean-
exit off either.
the amount of cars that go through that roundabout every day.
Yep.
So you live out there and see it, it's
Oh, I've lived out there for 20+ years.
ridiculous.
So I used to run down that road and not even worry about looking for cars.
Yeah, can't do that anymore.
Anymore.
That site you mentioned over by X and double X is 2.5 acres, so something like that would
I think that would work well
out
there, just my opinion. Anything else?
No, unless somebody else has anything.
Okay. Moving on, staff reports. Item number 10, February and March 2024. Staff approved certified survey maps and site plans.
To acknowledge staff approved certified survey maps and site plans as presented.
A second. Oh, sorry.
Motion by Pincinel, second by Mumper. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Item 11, February 2024 building permits.
Motion to acknowledge February and March 2024 building permits.
So it's
Second.
motion by Pincinel, second by Gurnt. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Number 13, acknowledge 2024 Village of Weston new housing fee report as required by Wisconsin Act 243.
To acknowledge report as presented.
Second.
Motion by Pincinel, second by Deason. On the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Number 14, acknowledge quarterly development agreements report.
Do acknowledge quarterly development agreement report is submitted by staff.
Second.
Motion by Mumper, second by Gurnt. On the question. Jim.
Yeah, did we get any farther? I know you're working with the improving the building permit process. Is part of that in there going to be like establishing some kind of a guidelines of some of this stuff of, hey, we talked to them last February, and I'm not saying that that's one of the cases on here, but some of these have been like, oh, we've been out of touch with this guy for a certain amount of time to kind of, I would assume there's some residential stuff out there too that gets lost in the shuffle, but we have a lot of projects moving and
So it tends to
some of our
come,
guys that look at the projects go away.
yeah, so basically what they did was, I mean, they're sitting down quarterly is what we're doing now with this. They sat down last week and went over where they were at. Because of everybody, like Roman will issue something, I may not see it to put it into this spreadsheet. It's
Sure.
in Evolve out there. Travis is the one that's gonna be going through like all the site, like finalizing the sites. And so he will probably go early spring to see where people are at, or June maybe, giving them time for the ones who, you know, we're finishing their building. I mean, we know the projects, like Inner City will be working on their landscaping this spring. They were issued their occupancy, but it's just kind of that fine tune on when they can actually get started out there, like, I mean, when spring actually happens and stays. And where they are in their, whoever they're using for landscaping, sometimes that doesn't. They'll notice it if it's on, you know, a project that's on Schofield Avenue, but something that happens out in the business park or out differently, they'll have to make a special trip out there.
So one of my questions up in the notes, a bunch of these say project complete. So I'm just curious, is there a reason they're still on this report if they're complete?
It's just the whole report. I didn't take them off.
Okay.
Historical.
Okay,
Yeah, this is just from when we started it.
So to
'Cause
come
it-
back to that, is there is there something that's getting put into when we overhaul the policy and procedure of hey, this is how we're going to address this or not?
We haven't started it yet.
Very well, thank you, that's all.
is there, I mean, do they have to stay on here if they're complete?
I don't, I can take
You
them
don't
off
like
for
seeing all the
you.
stuff that's been done? Come on.
No, but like, so that's how I am in my
Yeah.
office though, when something is done, I've got a big whiteboard. And when something is done,
Well, we have
I
that
like get
upstairs.
serious gratification out of erasing something off of the whiteboard.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
this
just
is
me.
just historical, cause that's what we would normally, like, you're seeing something that we would have used internally. And just
Sure.
kept it on there.
So
But-
going back to the residential homes, I break it down by year on tabs on the spreadsheet, so that, cause I have to work with finance on the completion surcharge refunds. So every February, I have to have a year-end report into them, so I break down. You know, so the sites could be broken
We
down
could
by
do it by
year,
year, yeah.
year that they're started, so that way you can, I mean, it is nice though, when I go back through tabs to see what's, you know, if there is a couple that are been out there for a couple of years that we have to follow up on. Because there was a temp occupancy was issued and they never called back. Never happens, but they never called back to say, hey, we're done with these issues that were on the temp occupancy certificate. So I mean, there's definitely different ways that we can,
Yeah.
you know, categorize the data, but it is nice to have the historical in there at some
Sure.
place.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand. I guess for me, it was just like, I thought it would clean it up. Like if it's done and you don't have to look at it anymore. Just my 2 cents anyways.
Oh, no, we're big checklist people, so I mean, we like to
Roman
that
and I
checked
like
off.
to like check this.
totally understand where you're coming from.
Gary, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I was just gonna say, I agree with Roman on that, cause and again, I don't think people purposely don't remember to call back. I think they just get it done and they're happy, and they forget about you know, the agency that's gotta make sure it's done. I just think it gets out of their mind. I don't think they're doing it on purpose. But Roman's right, it's nice to have that, so you can go back and double check and make sure that he gets his punch list done, and cause he's obviously not gonna wait for them to call, cause they're not gonna remember to call.
Yep, I hear you. Anybody have anything else? We had a motion on the floor by Mumper, and who seconded it?
It was loud.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 15, project updates.
So, Aaron's leaving us next Friday. So we are looking for a new assistant planner. I will actually be on vacation starting the 30th, through coming back at your next plan commission meeting. So originally he was going to get that packet ready, so we'll see what I can do in the next couple of weeks before I leave. Yeah, not a lot of time. I did talk to Dave Barnes at U-Haul today, and so they are gonna be doing something there. He said he's not in a rush. He doesn't have all his plans. That's gonna require a conditional use permit. So that may not come until June. We'll see. Michael and I need to sit down and talk about it, to find out what they need to do for drainage there. I have not received, the plans yet for, the Wendy's, which will be next to, Walmart, Walgreens.
Wait,
No,
what?
Walmart. No, I always call Walgreens Walmart. I don't know why. I even write it sometimes. It's the Walgreens site.
Is that public knowledge yet?
Well, they've submitted things, so somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, that.
Otherwise, gosh, my brain is going blank right now. But
Yeah, we're all excited about Walmart. No, I can't think.
no, we're not getting a Walmart.
Thank you. Just kidding. Just looking through this to make sure.
So will you be here for May's meeting then?
I will, but I'll be just getting back that day.
Well, you don't have to be here any sooner than 6.
No, I'll be coming back to work. I'll actually be back in the country on the Thursday beforehand, but
Well, you got a lot of time.
my daughter
4
graduates
days.
that weekend. So I won't be back to work until that day, that Monday. So we'll see what we can put together for you if we have anything. Lockery has not provided anything, but I see they're moving dirt around there. They took the buildings down, so we're still trying to work out details of the TIF development agreement.
Still have some cleanup to do on that site though.
Yeah, I would have thought we would have saw some plans, but I haven't seen anything yet. So,
We expect grand openings for the bank and Weston House fairly soon.
yeah, I think Adventure Waits and the Weston House, you probably got info on that, because they wanted to be open in May.
Yeah, they do, but their facade does not match what was approved on the plans. And so there's a lower band of stone that was not installed. We were told last fall that they wanted to get the building enclosed so they could start working on the interior. So I'm just letting everybody know that my intent is, they're gonna have to put it on if they want occupancy. So I'm just letting everybody know
They
that.
would have to come back to you if there's
Yeah.
a change.
That was gonna be my question. Is it to code? Like, I realize there's a conditional use, but so
Well, that one didn't have a conditional use.
Well, my
That got
conditional use-
TIF money.
it got TIF money, so it's gotta be built according to plans. My
Yeah.
question is,
Or for the TIF dollars. So they could still open, right? Could they open and not get paid the TIF dollars until they put the stone on and make the wood shorter or modify the plan and have it approved by the board?
Well, I would have to go back to the agreement that they
Yeah,
signed with.
this is the first
But
time
don't they have a developers agreement?
we do, so I have to look at the this is the first I know that you were questioning it, but we haven't talked about the fact that it.
yeah, cause
We'll be in there
Change it up.
tomorrow.
if it's to code, I would think I mean, they could do it, they could come back here and try to get approval. I don't know.
They have to do what was in the development agreement, cause that site plan was put there, so it'd have to be amended.
Didn't Trav
Before
raise
they
that
can get
question?
occupancy?
He did.
He
Yeah.
brought it up right away and that's when we addressed it with the developer. So
Well, they can get a temporary occupancy, but they're not gonna get any money.
I'm putting
So
it
it
out
would
in the
have to be
open now
brought
so
up.
that everybody's aware of it
Okay,
and knows it's something.
We'll have
he's
to
gonna-
talk about that.
So
all right.
Roman, which site was that, Roman?
it's 3200 Schofield Avenue,
The Adventure
The new Quick
Awaits,
Trip?
right across from Quick Trip.
Oh, yeah, yep.
So
Thank you.
All right. Announcements and committee commissioner remarks. Dave, you have anything?
I was just wondering, on the car wash next to Festival, I haven't seen anybody touch that wall. What's up with that?
Well,
The wall, the Great Wall,
the Great Wall that they constructed,
yes, the 7-footer,
that's about 18 now.
yeah. I mean, are they changing it? Are they just gonna continue it around and going, or?
It's based on the count block, the block count. Everything that was provided to us from the engineer on that designed retaining wall is as is. So they installed everything that was on their design plan. However, we don't actually have anything in the code requiring any sort of designing be required on a retaining wall. So they gave us design plans, and based on my count, they put everything in that was on the design.
Yeah, they did provide a structural engineer stamp drawing of the wall on the second attempt after the first attempt failed. So I guess that is something Rome and I talked about is we don't have anything in our code requiring the structural design of a retaining wall, but we probably should look at putting something in, or once you exceed, I don't know, 5 feet, 6 feet, maybe,
4 feet is when you need the geo. So I'd do it at that point, Michael.
4 feet then, yeah. So
Anything past 4 feet, you need the geo grid back, and that's typically when you want to have an engineer involved.
And that's where Wausau's trigger is at as well, I believe.
We used to have it in the code, the old code.
So,
Yeah,
and
we
the
gotta-
state building inspector can't touch it because it's not attached to
It's on
the
my to-do
structure.
list.
Yeah, that's something we gotta get done.
It's on the list.
Put it on as an agenda item for June or July.
It just looks, well, doesn't matter what
I think they still have the backfill, some of the backfilling and hill restoration to do behind it. But,
Yeah,
based on the size and some of the anchors on those, it does seem like it'll hold up, it'll be fine.
I mean, they tore down the garage on the hill above it
right.
to install the
Tiebacks?
tiebacks in the
The sheeting?
sheeting, yeah, the sheet piling. So, and then reconstructed the garage. So they're, and then they actually, corporate wanted them to tear it all down and move it back 2 feet. I told them no. I kid you not, I got contacted by the general contractor and he's like, this is what corporate wants, is they want it actually to be 2 feet farther, and if they have to encroach onto the neighbor's property, how much do we have to purchase to encroach on the neighbor's property? I said, you're gonna tear the garage down again and give the guy a new garage again to move it back 2 feet? They're like, without being on the site, yes, that's what they want. I said, that's really undue hardship on the neighbor that's already lost a garage. So,
I see it every single day, so I had to ask because, so from the village's standpoint, we're okay with that wall? Yes or no?
We have to be.
Yeah. I mean, they
the
have,
site is not complete, so as far as the east hill on that site and where it sits,
That's part of my question. They have not, they haven't turned the corner.
so we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. If the steepness of the grade requires additional, elements there, then we'll have to look at that then. It's been a cart before the horse on that whole project for those guys, so.
All right,
Thank you. That was all.
Mr. Mumford?
Good luck, Aaron. It's my only comment.
Where are you going?
Mr. Gordon?
Nothing, thanks.
There's a rarity. I'm just kidding.
Take your wins
I'm
when you
just
get
kidding.
You get
Settle
one.
down.
This is your one.
Settle down. Gary, you have anything?
No, thank you. congratulations, Aaron, and good luck. Not that it's congratulations, we'll miss you, but good luck with your new venture.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Aaron. The only thing I have, I just want to have a quick conversation about an email that got forwarded to me by my brother-in-law regarding a shed that or a garage that he wanted to put on his property. And I think it was Travis who emailed him back. He told him that he already has a garage out there. He basically just told him, we can't do it. There was no, you could put a shed out there, but you'd have to come in front of planning, anything like that, any other options. I just think that when we're emailing back to people that we're all here to represent, that if there is, yes, he may have been over the square footage and he can't do it, but I still think it would have been correct to tell him, hey, if you want to do it, these are your options.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not mad at anybody.
Yep.
I just think it's a good teaching point.
Yeah.
And Travis may not have known that, so he hasn't been here that long, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
I do know that, you know, brevity is something that he uses in a lot of his emails, and that's something that he does need to work on, you know. So we've had that problem in the past with staff not, you know, being forthcoming enough with the alternative process. So.
All right.
I appreciate the
Yeah,
communication
no,
on it.
like I said, I'm not upset. I just think it'd be a good point to have a talk.
How do you fix it if you don't know what happened, right? Both of you, right?
No, for real.
So that being said, next regular meeting date, Monday, May 13th, 6 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Please. Second.
Motion by Deason, second by Mumper on the question. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So carried.
Thank you all. Have a great night, everyone.